The first time someone treated Ethan Miller badly, he told himself it didn't matter. The second time, he wondered if he had done something wrong. By the third time, the doubt had settled deep inside him, following him home and sitting quietly beside his thoughts. Ethan worked as a night supervisor in an old city library, a massive building most people barely noticed anymore. Its tall shelves, narrow corridors, and flickering lights made it feel like a place frozen in time. At night, the silence felt heavy, as if the walls were listening. One rainy evening, as Ethan carefully organized returned books at the front desk, a sharp voice broke the calm. Victor Hayes, a senior administrator, stood nearby with his arms crossed and a look of irritation. Victor had a habit of making people feel small. He glanced at the books and sneered, questioning Ethan's competence and dismissing his work without a second thought. Ethan explained that he had followed the system Victor himself had approved, but Victor waved him off, muttering, "People like you always mess things up." The words echoed in Ethan's mind long after Victor walked away. Later that night, while locking up a rarely used section of the library known as Hall C, Ethan noticed something strange. A dim light flickered at the end of the corridor. Hall C was usually dark and avoided by staff because of its broken lights and unexplained drafts. Drawn by curiosity, Ethan walked toward the glow. At the far end stood a tall mirror covered in dust, framed with intricate carvings he had never seen before. He was certain it hadn't been there before. As Ethan wiped the glass clean, his reflection stared back at him. But something was off. The man in the mirror looked like him, yet older, calmer, and sharper around the eyes. Then the reflection spoke, asking why Ethan allowed others to decide his worth. Startled, Ethan stepped back, telling himself he was just exhausted. But the reflection insisted he needed the truth, not rest. The lights flickered violently, and the corridor fell into darkness. The next day, Victor publicly criticized Ethan during a staff meeting, holding up a report and mocking him in front of everyone. Ethan felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he remained silent. That night, the mirror appeared again in Hall C, glowing softly as if waiting. The reflection asked Ethan if he believed Victor's words. Ethan admitted he tried harder every day, but still felt like he was failing. The reflection leaned closer and told him something that stayed with him. When someone is cruel, it's not a judgment of your worth, but a revelation of their pain. The mirror then showed Ethan a vision of Victor shouting at others, followed by scenes of Victor alone in a dark apartment, surrounded by unpaid bills and unanswered messages. The reflection explained that fear often disguises itself as arrogance, and insecurity often speaks the loudest. The image faded, leaving Ethan standing alone in the quiet corridor, absorbing the truth. Days passed, and Victor's behavior grew harsher, yet something inside Ethan began to change. He stopped apologizing for mistakes he didn't make. He stopped shrinking his voice to keep the peace. He reminded himself that not every insult deserved a response, and not every criticism carried wisdom. Slowly, his confidence returned, not loudly, but firmly. One night, Victor followed Ethan into Hall C and accused him of acting superior. Ethan turned and calmly told him that he didn't believe he was better than anyone. He simply refused to accept labels that weren't true. The mirror flared to life behind them. Victor turned and saw his own reflection twisted by bitterness, replaying every cruel word he had spoken. Overwhelmed, Victor demanded it stop. Ethan quietly replied that it would when Victor did. The mirror cracked, then shattered, leaving only silence. After that night, Victor stopped coming to work. A new administrator eventually took his place, and the atmosphere in the library slowly improved, but the real transformation had already happened within Ethan. Ethan still encountered rude people and unfair treatment, but he no longer carried their words with him.
He learned to pause before letting negativity take root. He understood that kindness is strength, not weakness, and that his value was never determined by someone else's behavior. When a young intern once asked how he stayed calm in difficult situations, Ethan smiled and said that people's behavior is often a mirror, not of you, but of themselves. As Ethan passed Hall C one final time, the corridor stood empty. The mirror was gone. In its place was peace, and with it, a lesson he would carry forever. When someone treats you poorly, don't take it personally. It reflects who they are, not who you are.